Rent is going to be optional in Los Angeles until 2025 or 2026. That I can almost guarantee. Some insane new policies just got rolled in, and it's pretty concerning, especially if you're a real estate investor. But even if you don't live in California, you live maybe in New York or Illinois, or you live somewhere else in the country, you better pay attention to what's happening in California, because what's happening there generally seems to kind of drip over into other states. This huge court case that just occurred, the Supreme Court with the eviction moratorium, is so unreal. LA's eviction moratorium holds the Supreme Court refuses to hear landlord challenge. Los Angeles landlords have failed in their legal quest to overturn the city's eviction moratorium. On Monday, the Supreme Court decided not to take an appeal from the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. The decision effectively leaves in place the city's of LA's ongoing eviction protections for renters negatively affected with the pandemic. We had hoped the makeup of the court would give us a fair hearing. The executive director, obviously, they decided it was not an issue they were willing to take up. The decision could empower the city of LA to continue this thing with no end in sight. Now, I'm not one to, be pro-landlord or pro-tenant, but at the end of the day, I am pro-freedom, I'm pro-business, and I'm pro-opportunity. And when you're stripping away the opportunity and reshaping capitalism the way that they are right now, we really have to all question this. Is this something that's good for us, or is it something that's good for them? Look at what is happening right now. In Boyle Heights, tenants call for California legislators to cancel rent, to cancel it. They go on to say, if the state can no longer extend or sustain the rental program, then the state needs to move forward with canceling everyone's rent. Canceling everyone's rent, said an organizer with the LA Tenants Union and Poor People's Campaign. But the question is, are the mortgages canceled? Are property taxes canceled? Are the expenses of being a property owner canceled? I don't think so. And as of right now, the eviction moratorium began March 4th of 2020, and it's extended until June 30th of 2023. Now, to make things easy, the entire period is 1,197 days within an eviction moratorium. 1,197 days. So that's about 40 months with a 30-day calendar month, which comes out to about 3.3 years with an eviction moratorium. Now, let's say that you have a rental, just one rental unit, and the tenant's not paying on the first month, and rents $2,000. At the end, it would be $80,000 in back rent on one tenant. $80,000, not including legal fees. And the June 30th, 2023, that is when there's going to be, you guessed it, 678,000 landlords trying to evict a tenant. So you could only imagine that you probably wouldn't get a tenant out until 2025, incurring $110,000, $120,000 in losses per single rental unit, per one unit, right? And so when we're seeing this whole thing kind of play out, it makes us really look at the big picture. 1.399 million households in Los Angeles, and you have 678,000 total units. Now, if you factor in just single family homes and you take that out of the equation, you have to understand the true depth of this. With even factoring in households, it's half of the entire city, and most of which are not rental units. They're simply owner-occupied dwellings. Now, over 2/3 of Los Angeles rentals are now owned by speculative investment vehicles. 2/3. What do we all think will happen when mom and pop landlords get crushed with an eviction moratorium continuing to get extended and extended? Big corporate landlords are going to run out there and acquire properties. Now, I know a lot of tenants and a lot of people are saying, well, rents are too high, and the entire real estate landscape needs to be redefined and changed to make it more fair and equitable and affordable, right? But how would this actually play out? How it's actually going to play out is probably the complete opposite of that. What's ultimately going to happen is that corporate landlords are going to be on the sidelines awaiting opportunity, and as there's blood in the streets, they're going to continue pouring capital in, buying, as well as the state of California. And when the state of California is buying properties, how is this going to change the landscape of affordability and the opportunity for property ownership? Well, right now, a very unique paradigm shift is occurring, because we've heard about what's happening right now with airliners, and everyone's very excited about this, thinking that we may be going back to a place of 2018, 2019, where owners and renters and people could go out there and they can compete in a fair housing market. And people see this and they get excited thinking that the problems are over. However, I believe that the problems just began. And the reason I am saying this is this happened, right, April 19th. And one day ago, the 18th, the White House is holding this in May, right? They're holding this in May. And it says in advance of the May 12th, we are calling on world leaders, members of civil society, non-governmental organizations, philanthropists, and the private sector to make new commitments and bring solutions, right, to do this to the world, save lives now, and build better health security for everyone, right? The White House said in a statement, the emergence of this has reinforced the need for strategy. So how are we going to have this situation where everyone's excited thinking that everything's over, and then this comes out, right, a day before, and then they're now doing this in California. Well, right now in China, you can see all this madness here. Everything's getting pretty crazy over there, and then we have White House, what they just said, right? And then we have what happened on the airlines. You have to see how things just don't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's not looking as though we're moving out of the storm. It looks kind of like we're moving into the storm. And we're looking at what California is doing right now. LA County Board to consider recommending $38.5 billion in a budget. $38.5 billion in this budget. It says the budget brings to life the policy vision established for the Board of Supervisors to set a course for the county to strengthen the programs and services we provide millions of residents each day, CEO, right, said in a statement on Monday. That means continuing to respond diligently to the evolving pandemic. And this came out today, April 19th, and driving major changes to how we deliver services. It's a dynamic time, and the LA County recommended spending time intended to reflect that. And so they are intending, says the proposal foresees a positive economic outlook for the county, with property tax revenues expected to grow by 6% and sales tax revenue estimated to increase by nearly 8%. Again, these are estimates. However, Davenport, who said the county is cautiously optimistic, warned the challenges of uncertainties including inflation, labor negotiations, and continuing impacts of this litigation, an unstable geopolitical climate affecting gas prices in global markets. And this is how they're spending money. This is what's happening right now. Generally, the budget recommendation is divided into about $13 billion for public health, right? $9.6 billion for public assistance, $9.5 billion for public protections, and $5.7 billion for general services and other costs, $737 million for recreation and culture, right? So these two, the public protection, $9.5 billion, and public assistance, these could almost be categorized as one, which would be about $19 billion. $19 billion. And when we look at this new proposition here, it's called Proposition Measure H. This Proposition H, well, California is using these funds to build 6,000 units to combat homelessness. They're not just building. I've listened to a segment with Newsom. They're acquiring. They purchased these properties primarily from mom and pop landlords. 6,000 units. And they go on to say that Newsom's administration planned to take it even further. To expand the program, California will spend $5.8 billion of state and federal funds in the next 2 years and create an estimated 42,000 housing units. 42,000 housing units. Now, what I think is ultimately happening here is I think that the real estate landscape in California is being shifted away from owner-operators, from mom-and-pop landlords, from renters that want to go out there and buy their first properties into corporate hands and the state. That's ultimately what's happening. Los Angeles is the worst place ever to become a landlord. It's a beautiful place to live. It's an absolutely amazing place to live and to spend time. But to actually own rental properties, the state, corporate landlords, they have the upper hand. This is getting really, really concerning because we're going to see, if you've ever been to Los Angeles, you know that it is heavily driven with different minorities and people from all over the world coming there, working their tail off for 30 or 40 years to open a restaurant or a laundromat or a business. They buy one duplex or one triplex, and that's all they have. That's their nest egg, their retirement. They work so hard for this, and now these new policies come in and essentially tell the tenants that you deserve to have a free ride because we say so. And when the landlord is in great despair, then the landlord ultimately has to come with their hands out or list their property for sale or lose their property. This is why I think it is so important for all property owners all over the country to pay attention to what's happening in LA. Because one major red flag to me is how can Los Angeles 2 months ago come out and say that the eviction moratorium is extended until June of 2023 when they were doing 30, 60, and 90-day extensions previously? They're now doing an extension for 18 months. 18-month extension. How can they tell what's going to happen in 18 months, let alone 60 days or 90 days? 18 months they took that commitment so they didn't have to deal with these small extensions any longer. To me, this smells really, really fishy. And I think that we're going to see some real despair in the state of California for everybody. So when you hear the narrative that landlords are the bad people, or that we need more assistance, you have to really look at how has that played out in the past for us. Over the last 18 months, what have people received? 3 stimulus checks for $1,200 each. They've received about $3,600. And in response to that, gas prices went up 50%, inflation's at 20 or 30%. Things have never been harder for everyday Americans than they are today. Imagine what it's going to look like when it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Their grip gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not going to be better for the renter. It's not going to be better for the operator. It's going to get much harder. This is something we all need to pay attention to. But I'm curious, what do you think? Drop your comments below. Smash that like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube's going to share this content. Subscribe here. Consider subbing to my second channel, my second YouTube channel. Also on TikTok and Instagram. I'll leave links for everything down below. Catch you guys later.